sure you guys know what time it is. Today we're going to be making a brand new tier list, ranking every meta unit in Anime Last Stand as of the new JJK update. Keep in mind these rankings are just my opinion, so please be respectful in the comments, but I hope you find the video helpful. If you do, maybe feel like or subscribe. But anyways, let's get into it. Alright, so for the tier list we're making today, I'm going to be using the same rankings I always do. We have Meta Overall, Meta Infinite, Meta Early, Support, Decent, and Farms. I went ahead and got the farms out of the way. Idle is the most cost efficient, Bulma is the second best farm and best for Infinite, Hyojin is good for Progressive, Robin is good for Infinite. Moving into the actual units here, first up we have Yuta. And this guy's really crazy, because he's kind of like a duo unit who has a summon Rika. Both Yuta and Rika are really good. So Rika has Fear and Despair, and he has that on placement for just 2k, so he's a very good early game support. He also just has very good damage. He has Triple, Conquered, and Weakened across different upgrades. He has very strong nuking abilities. Overall, it's a very good unit. I'd say definitely meta overall. Yujo, I think. The fusion between Gojo, Yuta, Sukuna, and Kenjaku. This guy takes a lot of setup. I have a whole video on trying to fuse him, and it took a lot of prep time. But if you actually bring like 4 units on your team to actually make it work, he can be okay for infinites. He's a really good infinite unit. He just, in my opinion, not really worth using because it takes such a long setup. Hakari. This guy got a divine boost this update, and Hakari is crazy. I think he's very, very underrated from this update. Pretty much because he can have up to 777% crit damage. If you pair that with a crit unit like Garo, who's going to buff crit, which we'll talk about, he is very crazy. He can do like billions per hit, like 2 billion per hit or something. I don't know. One of the best DPS units, just raw damage units in the game, and he is pretty cheap, so you can use him in Progressive and Infinite. Definitely meta overall. The Divine Boosted Toji, in my opinion, just kind of okay. He is actually very good. Full AoE, pretty solid damage, really good damage. And then he does have a couple things that you can alternate between for boosting his own damage or stunning units, or sorry, stunning enemies. He's okay. I put him in decent, just because he's not like meta Progressive, not meta Infinite, but he is overall a good unit. Yato. This guy has a summoning passive that can do, I think, a little bit of percent base damage, and then also kind of knock back enemies depending on what you roll. He's got like an RNG summon type of thing. Pretty complicated, but he does also have very strong nukes, and overall I'd say meta infinite. Probably just right behind Yuto for now, Yujo. Itadori. Itadori is another very good unit that I have to put in decent because he just doesn't fit in overall infinite or early. I don't think he's like meta in early, I don't think he's really meta in infinite. His early is kind of lacking because he does take a little bit, like a few upgrades to get very strong. And he is kind of RNG dependent with a couple of crit passives, and he doesn't have hybrid on placement, I believe. So I'll put him in decent. He is very good though. Kashimo, same thing. Good unit, but going in decent because he doesn't fit into meta of anything. He's very good for bolt teams. He has a lot of bolt damage, and he also has a very good nuke ability for it. So he can be good if you pair him with like Light Shinra, for example, a full bolt team. He's very good, but otherwise just decent. Sukuna got a rework this update, and he is now Fire Element, so we only have one Dark Godly in the game now. But Sukuna, cheap, good damage, full AoE on placement. I would say almost meta overall. It depends on the content. I think because they're better early units, a lot of the times they're going to be better options for early specifically. But he is overall a very good unit. He has very strong nukes, a very strong early game, if you build him right, I guess. I'll put him meta overall. Yeah, just here for now. Maki. I'd say also meta overall. She's kind of like Toji, just not full AoE. She has like a passive that she cycles through different weapons every few attacks, and they're very strong. One of them is like elemental advantage against every element. Very good unit. She does have Mutilate on final upgrade, I believe, which did get reworked, kind of buffed. So a very good effect to have, and overall going in meta. Higuruma, I think. Higuruma, Judge guy. He is another good unit that I'll put in the top of decent, just because he's not really like meta for anything. But he does have a good application of the new Exhausted effect, or Extinguished effect. So if you need an Extinguished unit, he is probably your best pick, and he does okay damage. Tengen. I personally think he's very good. I did have him in meta overall last time. I think because we have Yuta for Weakened now, we don't really care about Tengen's full AoE Weakened as much. Pretty much he is full AoE, Weakened, Bolt, Bleed. Pretty good damage, but overall going in decent. Kefla, Super Sisters. They got nerfed this update, specifically the final form that she kind of builds up into. Now this unit is good for DPS, but because she takes a while to build up into, she's not really meta early. Because her damage is kind of okay, I wouldn't say meta infinite, because meta infinite is mostly like leaderboard units here. So I wouldn't put her meta overall either. and I'd have to put her in decent, even though she's not that bad. She just takes a while to ramp up for okay damage. Shisui, this guy, he got nerfed, so Shusu got nerfed. This guy is now a 2 placement, he was a 3 placement before. I'd say mostly a support because he has, I believe, Sunburn on placement, and then he is going to have a follow-up attack passive where he can have a chance to follow up a different unit's attack for 75% of that unit's damage. So he's kind of like a buffer, and he did get nerfed this update, so not as strong anymore. Phaeton, just a burn unit. I believe if he hits a burning enemy, he makes them bleed. Pretty good DPS, full AoE, and a somewhat strong nuke ability. I'll put him in decent. Gilgamesh, arguably the best unit in the game right now. Very good damage, and a bunch of stats effect that he applies, and then he has a summon that is a very good support. Overall, she's a very strong unit for pretty much everything. Infinite, progressive, top of the game right now, and pretty good godly lead as well. Medusa, I'd say meta overall. I know a lot of people might not agree with that. She is fully AoE on final upgrade, pretty good damage. She has Petrified, which is a very strong stats effect. I believe she is meta for progressive and infinite because she has a very solid stun effect and very solid damage. Caster Saber, another support unit. She is a pretty good buffer. I'd put her right behind Shisui for now. She just has a bunch of different buffs that she cycles through with her active ability. Astolfo, this guy's okay. He has cheap hybrid option. He has a stun passive. Decent damage. I'd put him in decent. He's not too crazy. Ishtar. Ishtar can be very good. I'd say meta early. She has a lot of range she builds up, a lot of damage she builds up. Overall, really good damage on placement though, and a nuking ability. Very good for progressive. Sakura, very underrated unit in my opinion. I'd say meta overall for sure. She's cheap, she does really good damage. I think she can apply like up to 600 million DPS onto other units, assuming they have more than 8 second SPA or a factor of 8. So yeah, she pretty much applies her own damage onto other units kind of, and does full AoE damage every second. Very good for everything, progressive, infinite, I'd say meta overall, and probably right about here. Army Bulmy, okay support. She has a damage buff and a cash drop she calls in every few waves, or I think once every wave, but like on a really long cooldown. So I'd put her, yeah, in support for now. Bucci, this guy just a normal DPS unit. He has like a crit centered build, I think, with his passives and everything. Just damage though, he's okay. I'd put him like right here. Akame, meta early unit. Mutilate did get reworked, so she's a little bit stronger now. Probably just right here for now in meta early. She's a fire mutilate unit. Madoka got reworked entirely a couple updates ago. She is very good. Her witch form is good for full AoE, fear, and despair, and honestly pretty good DPS. The goddess form is good for her damage, and she has a very strong nuke ability and a couple cool passives. I'd say definitely meta overall. She's a cheap heal unit with very good damage on pretty much all upgrades, so I put her, yeah, probably right about here. Esdeath, okay, Esdeath is a very strong unit, don't get me wrong. Like, I would put her probably meta overall, maybe? I don't know. Arguably, there's better like early game options now. You don't really need her for early game, and I'd say mostly because she's not like a main DPS on your team anymore. She's going to be seen as a support. I'd put her probably right about here in support. She's a full AoE Blizzard unit with pretty good damage and a damage buff as well. Noelle, this is going to be a water buffing unit that also has a nuking ability, which can be good for progressive and tournaments. So depends on what content you're running, but she is mostly a water support. Julius is going to be probably top of decent. He is very good. He has a bunch of different passives he can apply, like slowing down enemies, stunning them, speeding them up, and increasing his damage. He does really good damage as well. Could be meta overall, arguably, because he's hybrid on all upgrades, but I'd say decent for now. Conrad, another unit who can be good depending on the content. He's mostly like a nuker for tournament, and because he's like a nuke-centered unit, I'd say probably meta infinite. He's very good for nuking in infinites, but otherwise progressive, there are better options for sure. You know, meta early probably. He's pretty cheap. I believe he has wind shear and slow, pretty good DPS, a meter he builds up and does like full AoE damage with it. Pretty good. Out of the two, Black Clover Brothers, Asta is way better. This guy is very crazy. I know a lot of people in my last tier list video were kind of sad that I put him a little bit low in meta early, or sorry, meta overall. But I tested him out again, especially with Yuta now from this JJK update. He is very strong. He can pretty much get up to 2 random dot effects from his ability on final upgrade. And the way Yuta works is Yuta can copy those effects, so he does even more damage with Yuta, because Yuta can take his damage and do a lot with it. So, Asta probably going in meta overall right about here for now. Very strong unit. Bone Demon, meta early, he has bleed, cripple. If he hits something that's already bleeding or has cripple, he can apply pressure or hemorrhage. So a very good DPS output, and I'd put him probably the top of our options for meta early right now. Moving on to all the different types of Shinra. Fire Shinra is just a burn DPS unit who can also buff other burn units. Pretty good if you run him in the right team. I'd say meta overall. Right about here. Water Shinra, in my opinion, better than Fire Shinra. He is a fully AoE Blizzard unit who can also do a lot of damage from a nuking ability and buff other water type units in his range. I put him probably right about here in meta overall. Nature Shinra is an infinite unit. He is fully AoE, has a chance to insta-kill stuff every 5 attacks, I believe, and then a rewind ability, and also I think the slow and wind shear effects, maybe? He might have something else, I'm kind of blanking on that, but really good infinite unit, especially for his supporting value. Light Shinra is a bolt-centered unit. He has very good DPS, he has bolt, very low SPA for it, which means he can spam the detonate thing from reapplying it. Very good on a bolt team, and I put him meta overall and right about here. Neutral Shinra is going to be another infinite unit. He has a rewind and a nuke, pretty strong nuke, right about here. Dark Shinra is a support. He has Despair. I think he gets full AoE at some point, and shows pretty okay DPS, but mostly for the Despair, buffing other units there, so put him top of support for now. Arthur definitely going meta overall. He pretty cheap, good damage, gets hybrid at wave 5, or 5 waves of him being placed down, has good nukes for infinites, has good buffing with plasma, and blue flame. He's a very good unit overall. Meta overall going right about here. Benimaru meta early unit. I think he's very valuable because he does really good DPS with Black Flame, but also has Sunburn, and Sunburn is good for slowing down enemies, so he's always good for like all content. Even if it gets where he can't do much damage, he can kind of slow them down, so very good, top of meta early in my opinion. Joker, after the Divine boost, he's okay. He just has all the different types of burn and a small nuke with it. Pretty okay unit, I'd put him right about here. Kirito, I know people think I underestimate this guy. He's pretty good, don't get me wrong. He has like different damage bonuses against all the different types of elements in the game. The problem is for his like optimal DPS, it takes a while to ramp up. On placement, he's not the strongest. There definitely are better options, unless you're going against dark enemies. He does like 10 times damage to darks or something like that. But overall, he's just a solid unit that I don't think I'll put in meta early because there are better options in there. And I don't think I'd say he's meta infinite because he doesn't have infinite value. So I can't put him in meta overall either. So I'd have to put him in decent. He's kind of an awkward case where he's good, but I have to put him in decent, and I put him right about here. Lifa, she is an SPA buffer and nature unit buffer. Situationally can be very good, but kind of a niche unit. Support for sure. Unohana, same thing, niche support. She is a bleed buffer. Chihiro. He is perfect steel, very good damage. He is ground only for a while, but he does have a passive that applies hemorrhage, which for some reason can hit flying enemies, so conditionally hybrid. Very good DPS, very good application of all the different types of stats effects in the game. Going in decent, right above Kirito in my opinion. Death the Kid, very good early unit, especially with the current meta going on with Hikari crit damage. Death the Kid is going to kind of buff that with his Despair, and also be a very strong crit unit himself. Very, very good crit unit early game. Immortal King is kind of like mostly an infinite unit with his rewind and insta-killing and ability reset. He does also have very good damage, he does also have weakened on placement, and very good supporting passives as well. Definitely going meta overall, and one of the stronger units in the game right now. He has all the support to help out your team, and not too bad at personal damage. Anos is a meta infinite unit for sure. He doesn't really have much value outside of infinites. He just has a nuke that kind of takes a while to build up and does a lot of damage. I put him right about here. Quincy King is a support. He can buff your teammates and also has a better version of Fear, full AoE. So I'd put him right about here. Very, very good. Aizen, also arguably a support. Most of his value comes from a damage buff for things that are in his little bubble, or making them take more damage. He does also have full AoE pressure, pretty good damage, pretty good nuking abilities. I'd say meta overall. He is usable for pretty much every game mode, and very, very good in them. Maybe above or below Yuta, I don't know. Depends on what you're running. Never mind, Yuta is definitely above Aizen here. Ichigo, okay, people might get mad at this. I know Ichigo is one of the most fan-favorite units in the game. But here's the thing about Ichigo, okay. I personally don't really like him. And that's not because I hate the character. I use this guy, and in my experience, he's not very good for infinite. He does have pressure as like supporting value, but his raw damage is just something you wouldn't want to run on an infinite team for a leaderboard run at least. Like high-end infinite runs where you're going for an actual leaderboard spot. You don't want Ichigo to raw damage. He's going to be kind of a waste of a unit there. So I'm not going to say he's meta infinite, which means I'm not going to say he's meta overall either. And early game, I don't really like him too much. He does good raw damage, but the thing is, like, hard early wave content, for example the survival game mode, the Fate one with like all the modifiers on, he doesn't cut it. His damage isn't enough, and if you're going for hard early wave content, sometimes you need to just farm up and then place Gilgamesh. You need to kind of play greedy and go for like a more expensive unit. So he's meta early, he's a cheap, good damage unit. It's just I wouldn't really recommend running this guy. I don't know. A lot of people like him. I know that's kind of a hot take, but in my experience, going for high-end infinite runs or high-end hard early game content, he doesn't really cut it. Darksaber, okay. Meta infinite unit, she has a reputable nuke. She's kind of just hanging in there in meta infinite. She can be used as like a replacement to Conrad in tournaments because she does have a spammable nuke like he does, but overall it's kind of okay burst damage there. Baldy form of Garo, worse than the Cosmic form for sure. Baldy form is just kind of like ramping up his damage and then nuking based off it. And I believe he has a percent base execute as well, but I might be wrong. If I'm wrong, then he isn't that good, but I believe he has a percent base execute, so I put him in meta infinite for sure. Cosmic Garo, meta overall, very good unit, underrated. The thing about this guy that I don't think people realize, okay, which you can actually confirm for yourself now and go try it out, because we have crit damage numbers now from the new quality of life UI changes. So he has a godly lead of buffing crit chance and crit damage by 50%, it says, for 15 seconds. So he has pretty much 100% uptime on a 50% crit damage and crit chance buff, and the crit damage is not a flat 50%, okay? It is going to be 50% of the base value that the unit has that he's buffing. So most units with like Glitched and Glorious, for example, and their skill tree are going to have like 250% crit damage. He's going to give them another 50% of that, which is going to be 125%. So he's going to buff units crit damage by a lot more than people think. You can confirm that for yourself now. And definitely a top pick in meta overall for sure. I know people are going to comment like, why is he so high? Because his personal performance is not too crazy, but he can copy the damage of people in his range, so he's pretty much always going to be meta. As stronger units get released, if they're in his range, he's going to become stronger himself, and he's going to buff their crit damage and crit chance by a ton. Kurumi buff form, this is good for a support just to buff your teammates. She's okay for buffing crit chance and damage. Support mode of Kurumi is going to have a similar passive to Nature Shinra, where every 5 attacks she can guaranteed one-shot stuff, so pretty okay. Or sorry, not guaranteed, has a chance to one-shot stuff. DPS Kurumi, kind of falling off, just a high DPS full AoE unit with a 90-second time stop. Pretty okay, just for that time stop alone, but go in decent because there's better options now. Isogo, this guy is going to be a buffer. He's going to buff units in his range a little bit. His personal damage is also pretty good. He is pretty cheap, but I'd say overall there are better options in like the other categories nowadays, so mostly used for his buff if anything. Nagi, meta early unit for sure, very solid for the light option. He does more damage the first time he hits stuff, and very good DPS output. I'd say probably going right about here for now. Say Prodigy, also a meta early unit. He has perfect seal, he can buff his teammates around him, I believe, and then also does pretty okay damage. Cheap hybrid, meta early unit. Wukong, this guy just does a lot of damage. He's good for bolt teams, he can apply plasma, he has clones that do a lot of damage. He does have a couple of new passives from a rework / buff he got recently, but they're mostly just giving him even more damage. He doesn't have too much value for supporting or anything. Just really crazy overall. And he does have a good godly lead. I put him probably right about here. Goku, also very good, meta overall for sure. I'd put him right above Wukong. Very good damage and very strong nuking abilities. Gohan, he's okay for buffing Goku and buffing himself if you run him with Goku, but the unit himself is kind of underwhelming now. He does have a nuke, which can be good for tournaments, but overall, his damage is just okay. He is a cheap water option if you need one though. Zamasu, unboosted, is actually a meta infinite unit for his nuke that does, I think, 10% HP drain for bosses. So if he hits a boss with his nuke in his range, it is going to take 10% of their HP away. Very good for units that have like quadrillions of health in late leaderboard runs, so meta infinite unit. The boosted form of Zamasu, also kind of a meta infinite unit because he has infinitely scaling damage from his passive, but worse than the unboosted form. The boosted form of Icarus, kind of an underwhelming unit, just kind of like a raw damage, full AoE unit with bleed. He's okay. If you need to have someone for like, you're just getting into World 2, he's kind of okay, but otherwise just decent for now. Gon, meta infinite unit, he has infinitely scaling damage, pretty much just the same as boosted Zamasu here. Itachi Divine Boosted is going to have a Black Flame passive, I believe, where he's going to like... What it's supposed to do with his Black Flame thing is to have perfect SPA like Benimaru, where his Black Flame is always going to line up with his SPA. When I tested it, it's been bugged and it just doesn't work. He attacks like too fast or something. If he puts Black Flame on something, he doesn't reapply it on his next attack, so his DPS is very low. And I put him probably really low and decent for now. Usopp, this guy is definitely kind of falling off, going in decent for sure. He does have a unique gimmick though, where he has infinite range and guaranteed crit chance. The infinite range part can be helpful if you're trying to macro something like a large map, or if you have a unit that benefits from like one of their passives for him having a range. He can kind of be useful, but overall, going indecent. Tatsumaki. Tatsumaki is a very good unit, pretty underrated in my opinion, very good slow on placement, cheap hill unit, very good damage for nature if you have like water enemies, and arguably good in infinite sometimes because she has a nuke that does scale off her kills that she gets, so pretty much an infinitely scaling nuke, kind of. And then she does have just really good slow. So conditionally, sometimes I'd say she's a very good unit for just kind of overall, but going in meta early for sure. Saitama, meta infinite unit, he has a nuke that is going to, most of the value come from his 33% execute ability, because any percent based HP thing is broken for infinite runs, leaderboard runs especially, because enemies start to have quadrillions of HP where you need percent based stuff, going at the top of meta infinite for Saitama. Okay, Sun Jin Woo. This guy did benefit from the Mutilate rework, where he's going to have more damage now, I think, from Mutilate doing more damage. But he is kind of falling off. We have better DPS options now. All he really has is raw damage compared to other godlies. His lead is not great, his support is not great. He can be useful for every game mode, even infinites, because he does have a little bit of supporting value from one of his passives. Overall though, because summons are not too strong in this game, he'd just go in meta overall, probably right below Sukuna. He's the only Dark Godly in the game, sadly, because they changed Sukuna to Fire, but whatever. Albedo, a support unit, she's going to, I believe, debuff enemies' range, or sorry, debuff units' range, and then buff their damage. So, conditional buffer, she's okay as a support. Rimuru, very good unit, kind of like cheap, good damage, has a bunch of different stats effects on different upgrades. The most important one being weakened, kind of like Tengen, it is fully AoE weakened, but we don't really care about that much anymore. With Yuta and Wongling and just other weakened units, we have a lot in supply now. So can be good if you want fully AoE weakened, and a nuke that is actually kind of bugged, I think, it doesn't work. But right now going in decent, he's okay. Dio, support unit, has really good time stop uptime, very good SPA buff, SPA reduction for units in his range, and very good enemy slowdown. Overall, it's a very solid unit. He has an ability which is going to do like kind of infinitely scaling damage from his summons that are going to ramp up for the enemies he kills, so can be good in infinites as well. I'd say definitely a support though, top of support tier. Fubuki, cheap hill unit, does gain fully AoE Blizzard on final upgrade, so pretty useful in all content, kind of. Does also have a unique passive that is going to buff any status effect that is going to slow down enemies, I believe. But overall, it's kind of decent, her damage is kind of falling off. Ryuk, this guy's meta infinite for sure. He has a chance every hit to insta-kill stuff, very low chance to one-shot enemies. Very good in leaderboard runs because stuff starts to have quadrillions of HP, and the meta is just to one-shot them. Tier 5 Luffy. This guy, for a godly unit, is kind of on the lower end. He probably will be getting a rework or buff soon. But I do think he's underrated for what he does. He's very good for slowing down enemies. He has a good godly lead for slowing them down. He has a passive that's a better version of Conquered. He has fully AoE Conquered on one of his upgrades. Overall, very good. His personal damage is not that bad. He does have a couple of nuking abilities as well. I'd put him in meta overall, probably right about here. Kaido. Okay, Kaido. His damage isn't that bad. He could probably be indecent, like maybe around here or something. But he's mostly a support now for his Dazed passive. He has Dazed, which is like, I believe the way he has it is kind of like a 40% uptime on a stun. Enkodo from Gilgamesh has a better version of it, I believe, but Kaido is still pretty good support, and I'd put him probably right about here-ish for now. Subaru, also another support. He's going to have a 35% damage buff for units in his range, I believe, and then also an ability which is going to give them 300% Elemental Pen, which is very good, especially on Perfect Seal units. I would put him probably right about here. Fuchi, also a support, full AoE pressure, has an ability reset and enemy rewind ability. Very good. Guts is okay. He's going in decent tier. His damage is kind of falling off. He's full AoE, does good. Hemorrhage and I think Mutilate? Hemorrhage and Bleed or Hemorrhage and Mutilate, one of the two. It's very good dot damage. So he's good for canceling regen and his damage isn't too bad, full AoE. But most of his value, in my opinion, is going to come from his passive, which is going to be the only passive in the game that can stun friendly units in his range. So for units like Goku or Gohan, anybody that has a counter when they get stunned, Guts can kind of help them out with their personal damage by stunning them. But otherwise, he is just kind of okay and decent tier. Antares is a burn buffer. He does okay damage if you put him on a burn team, but otherwise just kind of a low tier niche support for burn teams. Giorno. Okay, this guy can be alright for raw nature damage, kind of. If I had to rank him, I'd put him in decent, probably like right about here, maybe here. but he's mostly a support now for his rewind ability. They kind of gutted his damage a while back. He doesn't do very good damage anymore. I'd put him probably right about here in support. Pride is another one of the weaker godlies in the game. He is going to be pretty much fully based around having a burn team. He's going to buff other burn units and fire units in his range. His damage isn't that bad for the fire element. If you need a fire team, he's very good to run as the leader, which mostly a burn buffer, as I said. Madara, infinite unit, very good rewind, and a pretty okay repeatable nuke. I'd put him in meta infinite and probably right about here. Erwin, okay, Erwin is a support unit, very good damage buffer, and probably right about here in support. Garemi, this guy is going to be a random passive early unit. He's okay, arguably you could put him meta early, but kind of a straggler there. He's kind of falling off with other better light options like Ishtar, Ichigo, and Nagi. So going in decent tier, he's okay for early wave, applying a bunch of random stats effects, and going right about here. Naruto is a support, he's going to buff damage and range by I think 15 and 10%. Going right about here in support tier, probably below Unohana. Goku Black is a meta early unit for sure, very good damage on placement. It does take a while to ramp up to his full potential, but it does ramp up to a pretty high ceiling of damage, very good damage from him. So probably right about here in meta early. Gogeta, or Bogata, this guy is an infinite unit. He has a nuke that does I think 60% HP to the strongest enemy on the map, or bosses or something. Very good nuker for infinite runs, for specifically leaderboard runs if you're going for it. And then finally, we have Gojo. Gojo is very good, don't get me wrong. I had him way higher before, like right about here or something. After careful consideration, I think I'm going to move Gojo down to right about here. I just think that the other units here have more value. Asta has more value in progressive, Wang Ling has more value in infinite. Gojo is good, like a mix of both, kind of. Overall, a very good unit. He has good damage, he has a slow bubble around him, good for support, and also some very strong nukes and time stop abilities. But overall, I do think he's moving down a little bit and going at least below Asta and Wang Ling. I tried to kind of yap and explain everything I could. I'm sorry if I talked fast, I'm not sure. I know people say I talk fast in these videos, but look man, it's already going to be like 20 minutes anyway, I think. I gotta keep it a little bit quick. But anyways, I think that is all for the tier list. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. In my opinion, it looks pretty good, but again, this is just my opinion. And I'd love to know what you guys think and hear any criticisms that you have. Anyways, thank you to my channel members for making this video possible. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Hope to see you in the next one. And have a great day.